So you've identified something. You've identified an edge, an advantage here on this one particular slot game. All right.
One.
Right. What do you do next?
Well, then I started... Well, okay, because the thing is, too, is a lot of people don't want to just explicitly talk about it, right? Like they...
Well, yeah. I mean, look, you're hiding. We're hiding your face. We're hiding your name right now. You even mentioned that... All right. Hello. Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, purifying sports betting, winning with SX. I'm Shane. Pace is here on today's show, prop betting under the microscope. We've got a guest sharing his story of finding edges in casinos, and we'll hit the grind with Gosu. But first, Pace, how you doing? How's your week? How have things been since we last chatted?
I am so unbelievably happy that we don't have to wake up for those early morning NFL games anymore this season. I think they're okay. So
they stopped broadcasting them. Let's just start there. The fact that they were broadcasting them on a lot of main networks before, they stopped doing that.
Yeah.
I think nobody wants to wake up for it.
They're harder to watch, that's for sure. And I don't mean the quality of play, but let's actually talk about that for a second. So in the NFL, everything to do with what they do when it comes to when the games are scheduled, why they're scheduled when they are, the list goes on and on. It's all backed by that unbelievable profit machine that is the NFL, the most profitable sports league in the world. So they know what they're doing, right? And that's why they've expanded. Shane, I don't know if you remember this, but there used to be games in Toronto.
I went to a few of them.
There you go.
Yep. I was there as a reporter, actually. It was pretty awesome. I got media passes. I was able to go hang out in the media lounge. They fed us great food, and there would be a little tailgate set up. It was fun. It was a great time. But you also got the sense that the tailgating wasn't what it's like in the US. It wasn't,
right.
There's a certain aspect of the culture around it that was missing when they played those games in Toronto.
And I'm sure that's probably similar in the Europe games.
Yeah.
But we saw there was an NHL game on Sunday that started at 6 a.m. my time. Nashville played the Penguins in Sweden or something.
Yeah.
Right. So more leagues are experimenting with this international stuff. And again, I'm just going to assume it's for good reason from an outreach and profitability standpoint. Shane, this one you'll find interesting. So the Toronto Raptors, they play a preseason game every single year in Vancouver. Preseason.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So they fill up the stadium that the Canucks play in, sells out every single year. The nosebleeds are $500 for that game.
Really? There's that much interest in the preseason game? That's amazing.
So, this is what happens. And this is classic Vancouver, but I think this model applies to international sports that come to your city that are out of market. It becomes a big deal. It becomes this thing, a lot of potentially girls and their, crew for Instagram, getting dressed up, going to the Raptors game, right? I haven't even mentioned yet that the starters play for about 6 minutes in this game. They get to the bench after that, and then the rest of the game is like an NBA, G League, or Summer League game. You've got these third, fourth strings guys that might not even make the team. And comparatively speaking, you can go to Las Vegas and watch Summer League, which actually has some excitement because some of those young stars that are potentially going to be Rookie of the Year candidates are actually going to be playing in those games. They do rest the biggest stars and they only get a little bit of time, but those stadiums aren't even close to filled out, right? So yeah, they do this thing in Vancouver, and I think it's a really good example of how much money leagues can get by going out of market in these spots. But the problem is these players have to travel to fucking Europe. Toronto to Vancouver is not an easy flight, but it's way easier than what we're describing. And I think you can see it in the quality of the play, because I've been up for every single one of those games. And, isolated NFL games, I do think people genuinely tend to find boring. The public just wants these crazy shootouts, but these are not good football games, and the product isn't as strong. And from a scheduling standpoint, and this is selfishly speaking, I wish they'd lump it in with the 1 p.m. Eastern slate and bump a couple games up to the afternoon slate, balance that out a little bit more so that we don't have to focus on just this one game, and they're still getting their international game, which is how they used to do it. But again, they're doing it this way for a reason. They get idiots like me that set their alarm at 6 a.m. Pacific. That's been up. I've been up betting college football till midnight Pacific time, and then I got to unwind from that, and off goes my alarm at 6 a.m. on Sunday to get up in the pitch dark to watch more NFL. It obviously works. Anyway, Shane, you asked me how I'm doing. You asked me how I'm doing. I'm doing great. I'm really happy I don't have to set that alarm on Sundays anymore, and I'm looking forward to the back end of the NFL and college football season here as we approach Thanksgiving. And usually this is the time of year that things really do start
heat up. Yeah, it's that time of year. Things are going to heat up in the NFL. We're going to see those division races start to play out. Everybody's going to be fighting for playoff seeding and all of that. The games just mean more, and you see it. And I think you didn't see some of that in those European games. I mean, guys are, their body clocks are, for them, they're playing at exactly, what you're talking about. Think of a West Coast team or a Midwest team going out there playing at 7 a.m. body clock time, 8 a.m. body clock time. I mean, that's just, not a recipe for success.
There's actually something that people don't really think about, because our generation is used to air travel, to flying, to flight. We're used to it. But it really wasn't all that common even 75 years ago. And we've only been flying as humans for, 100 years. So we've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, or how long humans have been on Earth. I don't think we truly know. Maybe we do. That's really not my department. But the fact that we jump multiple time zones in a few hours is extremely inhuman.
Yeah.
And our bodies aren't programmed for it.
Yeah, we're not biologically wired for that yet.
Right. So if you change 1 hour, like, we have to do, Shane, with spring forward and all that.
Yeah, we just did that recently, fell back.
They say you need one full day, and it's the next day. You need one full day the next day to recover from 1 hour of time change. Wow. So if you're traveling, from who played in, who are some of the teams that played?
Well, what did we have over there? We had, was it Atlanta? That was over there?
I don't even remember the game yesterday that I just watched. It was Tua. it was Miami against Washington.
Miami, Washington. Right? That's right. Yeah.
So I think you have a 5 or 6 hour time change, which in theory you basically need 6 days to recover from.
Wow. And then they fly back. And then they've got to re-recover there. Yeah, crazy stuff. All right, well, we're on the NFL, and the NFL is making a big news in Pace. We've been covering these betting scandals now for the last few weeks. So, people are out there are aware of them. MLB, NBA, FBI indictments. People could be going to jail. And so last week, the NFL issued a memo on Thursday, basically saying that we're going to be looking at cracking down on prop bets. Well, here's what they said. They said that it's begun actively engaging with state lawmakers and the NFL sports betting partners, aka sportsbooks, to limit or potentially outright ban prop bets. So limiting, potentially banning them entirely. And so, Pace, just to give people a little bit of a behind the scenes look at kind of prepping for the show here. Typically what I'll do, Pace, is I'll go out there and just take a look and see what's making news in the world of sports betting. What's happening today, what's out there. And so when you punch in sports betting, you click on news in Google here this morning. Look at these first few headlines. Washington Post, opinion. I'm a huge sports fan. Gambling, especially prop bets, is ruining the fun. Next one, New York Times. How sports betting is affecting NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL players. The headline there, we've covered this before. Players across sports leagues dish on threatening messages from fans, prop bet worries, and league education. Al Jazeera, international outlet here. Is global sports betting out of control? Hundreds of Turkish footballers and referees have been found to hold illegal betting accounts. We've covered that a couple of weeks ago. Vox, why prop bets are ruining sports. So these are the headlines, Pace, in the first, results when you search sports betting news today. it's pretty clear here that prop bets are under the microscope right now in a major way, and there's potential to lose them, not just in the NFL, but across all sports. IPL has kind of come around to prop betting more. Prop betting's always been a part of In Play Live, but I think there's more props being called within the community lately as opposed to say a few years back. Are you worried about this?
It's a really interesting discussion. So before this podcast started, Shane, this morning, I got off a text exchange with an owner of a sports book that said I'm a cheater.
No way. Flat out called you a cheater.
Yeah, you're a cheater.
Wow.
Right. I paid you out still, but I know what you're doing and you're a cheater. And
okay.
I could have just laughed, but I did defend myself, and I tried to do it in a way that bridged the gap as best as possible. And the conversation actually steered into a direction about some things this organization is working on for placing bets themselves, APIs, advanced algorithms to trade on Kalshi, and some other exchanges. I didn't fire it back, but I wanted to say, well, you're cheating.
You're trying to cheat.
Right. So, and this is the thing right now, because all of this has come to light, which has, by the way, been happening for decades, if not hundreds of years, fixing some sort of scenario for a profit.
Yep.
Maybe not to the degree or sophistication that it is happening today. Something has to be done. So because of that, it's a news story, number one. And number two, the NFL feels as though they have to get involved, especially given that there's partnerships with these sports books. What people fail to realize is you might read a headline that scares you. Shocker, that's been going on for quite some time. If anyone remembers some of the data that was being shared during COVID, the fear mongering that was occurring was unbelievable. So it doesn't matter if it's politics, your health, sports betting, the headlines are there to obviously get a reaction out of you, to get clicks, right? To get people to read the article, et cetera, et cetera. But this isn't going anywhere. So the regulated sports books can pull this all they want. That is going to lead to more offshore play that does have these type of markets and increase the competitive advantage that we're seeing with some of the exchanges like SX and Kalshi, as they're offering these great live markets that now people can flood to outside of just this yes/no money line situation, right? So I'm not worried even kind of about the future of this stuff. And there's another side to this, and that is, if you're the NFL and you're like, okay, they can't bet on props anymore, exhale. Do all these people, these rings of organizations that are somehow fixing a player prop, a situation, a game, do they just go, oh, we're done. That was a great run, guys?
That's like you, Pace, if you've ever lost an edge and you're just like, all right, I'm done betting. Right? You don't give up. You keep working and you find new edges. You figure out a way.
Right. So unfortunately, what I believe needs to happen is the biggest example that could possibly be made of the players that have, committed some sort of infraction in this space, done in the league, contracts clipped, all that's like, it has to be so harsh that no one else wants to do it. That is where my belief lands, as far as being like, okay, the props are gone. Let's just say that every player prop is gone in every league on regulated sports books. I don't think that will solve, a problem.
Yeah. The gray market will fill that gap. They will gladly fill that gap because there's going to be a lot of people out there still looking to place those props. And I like that you brought up the exchanges like Kalshi, for example, maybe others in the US, Novig, and of course our sponsor SX. None of these are really sort of considered those league partners, right? When we hear that all the time, right? We're talking to our league partners. They never want to say sports books, right? They always say league partners, but we know who they're talking about. They're talking about Fan Kings. Right, they're talking about the sports book where you could bet every day. The green one there. All the ones that we see advertised in the stadiums and that kind of thing. And a lot of those exchanges don't have those relationships right now, so they're not necessarily, considered a partner. And are they bound to any of that stuff? We're already seeing that these exchanges are saying that they don't need to play by the state laws and the state rules. They're federally regulated. And yeah, that would be really interesting to sort of see something like FanDuel, DraftKings stop offering prop bets on main players in the NFL, but meanwhile you can still go get those same props over at Kalshi.
Yeah, and not to mention, the back to I'm a cheater thing, like me, I'm a cheater. Back to that argument. I hate that stuff being thrown at us because, Shane, I can show you my player prop results live betting for this year, and you're going to be like, if he cheated, he'd be doing a lot better than how he's done, right?
Right.
We've had some great ones, some great moments, some great opportunities. But equally with that, we've had these brutal situations where, your player gets hurt on the next play, which would be the complete opposite of cheating. Like if we had his under rate before that play, then maybe you could say, hey, what's this guy betting on? But we're betting an over, and on the next play, he goes down. The more this gets cleaned up, the less that gets thrown at me.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Speaking of cleaning up, though, the NFL sort of buried in the headline and of the memo there, because obviously props kind of stole the show when the NFL put out that memo, but they're actually looking at a bunch of other things too. So they're calling it inherently objectionable bets. So things that would be considered derogatory or inflammatory, stuff related to potential safety, injuries, misconduct at games. I'm thinking about the WNBA, perhaps, where they were tossing things onto the courts, keeping it safe here and clean for the show. But I think most people know what I'm talking about. So NFL looking at what they would call inherently objectionable wagers. They're also going to be taking a close look at officiating related bets. So think penalty yards as an example. Is something else they're looking at. Another one here, determinable by one person that they might be looking to eliminate. A good example of that would be a kicker to miss a field goal, make or miss on a field goal. And the other one, predetermined outcomes. The example given here would be like first play of the game, run or pass, because that's a play that's typically determined before the game even begins. And, depending on who wins the coin toss, that information could be put out there. So these are other sort of areas that they're looking to kind of crack down on as well.
Yeah. And if I'm betting on, for example, Jahmyr Gibbs in an NFL game, a really prominent player, that's going to be just an absolute staple of the offense. Put all the quarterbacks in the same bucket. The guys that you typically roster in fantasy.
Yeah,
and the other starters. And it's for them to do things. I think there's very little room for corruption there, right? If I miss a field goal, but I bet on to make, right? Like if I'm a kicker and I bet on to make, or if I'm a bettor and I bet on to make, and he misses, and everything was equal, the intentions were pure. That's just a natural part of sports, where someone didn't get what they had hoped to, or what you as the bettor hoped for them to achieve. A few of those things that you just mentioned, I can legitimately say, what is the upside of having those? Now, if I'm someone that's edging out, penalty yards, I just always look at that kind of stuff personally and think like that's not an easy market to get down on in the first place. It's probably going to be really book specific. What is the overall upside to the betting community to be able to have some of those things that you listed there? And I think it is pretty minimal. But again, it seems like you can just get any market up on these prediction markets. So I think that the more this happens, the more people flood over there. If we can bet on, what was that suit thing you brought up in one of these episodes?
Yeah, that was
the Ukrainian Zelensky's suit.
Yeah, suit or not a suit.
But if we can get a market up for that, and again, that potentially had some corruption associated with it. If we can get a market up for that, we can get a market up for anything.
Yep.
Right. And I think that they very much want us to have markets up for that. And a good example of that is with SX at our In Play Live event. We had more handle on a beer pong match than they had on like the Dodgers game that day. And it wasn't that they didn't have any handle on the Dodgers game. It was that we bet that much on that beer pong match. So if you generate enough buzz and excitement about something that, is completely meaningless in the world of sports, well, you're going to get people on both sides wanting something to or not to happen. Right. So yeah. People will continue to flood there the more that this, gets enforced. But I am 100% in agreement. Some of that stuff we just don't need on regulated sports books.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like some of these things here just don't need to be there in the first place. And back to the players and their particular props, I think the people that are caught up in that, just throw the book at them and make it so that the deterrent is clear, to not engage in that kind of behavior. And as as we kind of discussed, people are going to search for their edges. You could take away the props there, but they're going to go find other ways to keep grinding out those edges at offshores or prediction markets and that kind of thing. All right, great conversation there, Pace. But we've got another great conversation to get to, all about finding edges, but this time in casinos. So let's bring in our guest. All right, I'm really excited to welcome Daffy to the show. And no, that's not his real name. We are concealing his identity here because it's very important for what he does in the betting space and in the gambling world. Daffy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, thank you so much. Doing good. Excited to be on and chat. Yeah.
Hey, really happy to have you on here. Well, talk to me about your first experience at a casino.
Yeah, so I was in college. It was, I think, junior, and I just turned 21. And my grandfather had a comp for a room actually at Potawatomi Casino up in Milwaukee. I had never been, and it was kind of like, hey, we've got a room, we've got dinner. Do you want to come with? And I was like, sure, turn 21 and let's check it out. So, I worked during the summers and then kind of used that money throughout the school year. And so I took either $100 or $200 with me, which at the time was a lot. But figured, okay, this is what my budget was. Went to the casino. Long story short, had never gambled, but when you open a player's card, they give you, like some sort of promo. So spin a wheel, get between $5 and $500. I got $25 of free play, and I actually didn't touch any of the cash in my pocket, but ended up walking out a winner of like $550.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, and at the time, I knew how long it took to make $550, and it was definitely interesting. But to be clear, this was not advantage play whatsoever at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
So when do we start making that transition towards advantage play?
Yeah, so I did a leadership program with like a former subsidiary of GE. So they do these programs where every 8 months you get a new job and move to a different part of the country. So I moved to Ohio. And there was a handful of casinos in the area, and I didn't know a lot of people. So I ended up going to a casino, and I was watching like Brian Christopher at the time, who's like a slot YouTuber. And he was talking about, you want to play on higher denominations. So basically not like a penny slot, but, dimes or quarters or dollars. And minimum bet is going to give you a better return on your money than playing, the lower denoms. So I did that. And as luck would have it, because again, this was all just not advantage play. I ended up winning a major jackpot for like $1,400 or $1,500. And, again, it was just kind of like, wow, it's money. This money is so easy, which we both know is definitely not the case. But yeah. But I've always been analytical. So what I did is I added those two wins together, the 550 and then that major jackpot. And what I did is I would keep track of every time I went to the casino. And I told myself that hit zero, I'm done playing. And so as time went on, of course, again, there was no edge here. That profit was gone, and it was exactly, I was even.
Right.
And
like back at zero.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
and it was like, I was like, all right, well, that being said, like it seemed like it was easy money at the beginning, which is like the hook, the hook and the beast is like how I've heard it described. But it was like, is there a way to beat the casino? And so I did a Google search of how to beat the casino. And there was this guy, Colin Jones, who like popped up. He runs a site called Blackjack Apprenticeship. And it takes you through how to count cards. So first you need to learn basic strategy, and then you need to learn how to, like index plays for like at a certain count. But then before that, you actually need to know deck estimation. It's like the different components of card counting. He like walks you through what that is, what does it look like, and there's like drills on his site. And that was kind of where the first time I realized, okay, this can work. But also I've been someone where, I'll work at something if I find it interesting, but my interest hadn't peaked enough to learn basic strategy. But I also didn't want to lose money going to the casino. And at that point I had decided I wasn't like done going yet. So in my mind, the only path forward was to learn basic strategy and learn learn how to count cards.
Okay. And you were doing all this, you had a job. You mentioned GE, you were working for General Electric.
Well, so initially it was a subsidiary of GE. It used to be GE Retail Finance Bank. And then they spun off the company Synchrony. So they do like private label credit cards. And when I had started learning to count cards, it was right before, well, a little bit before, like the July before the pandemic. Okay. And so I left there and went to go work at PwC. And I actually thought that this would line up really well because there was something called in lieu of travel. So what you could do is you'd fly to the client site like every Monday, and then on Thursday you'd generally fly home. But if you were to do in lieu of travel, you could take the same amount of money that you would spend on flying home to fly somewhere else in the country. And if you kept it cheap enough, you could also use that money for rental cars, food, hotel, etc. And so in my mind, it was, I'm going to learn how to count cards, and then I'm going to, in lieu of travel on the weekends, and just travel to different casinos around the country and count cards was the plan. And then COVID happened.
Right. Okay. And I guess that kept you home.
It kept me home. But the upside of it was I became, there wasn't much else to do. So, I would play like some video games, but for the most part, I was just counting down decks, practicing my basic strategy, doing deck estimation. I went, like every time I was in the airport, I'd buy a new deck of cards. I think I have like probably 16 to maybe 25 different like decks of cards that I was just buying and would use to, basically practice. And what that all led to was he runs something called a boot camp, where basically you go there, they test out your skills, and they see, are you a profitable card counter? Are there holes in your game? And so on and so forth. And so I flew out to Vegas about a year later from like when I started just like having that kind of eye-opening moment. And like it was either June or July of 2020. And I found out that I was, in fact, a profitable card counter. And so that's kind of what kicked off me going to the casino and starting to play.
Right. Okay. And your card counting. Okay. So you did that for how long? Because you eventually move into the world of slots.
Yeah. And so I did that. I didn't have a ton of hours. I think I had like 150, maybe 200 hours. I have to go back and look at my sheets, which for some people, it's like, that's just not a lot of time. But for me, and I think as we were talking before, we'd hit record, I look like a card counter. So what was tough is, I couldn't get time on the tables. And like what we know about expected value is the only way to, overcome variance and reach the long run is by getting hours on the table in this case, or if it's sports betting, the number of sports bets you place with an edge, etc. I couldn't really reach the long run. And one of the last things, I actually got back roomed at a Native American casino. And it was weird. I hadn't like raised my bets. I went from table minimum, which was $10 to like 2 spots of 20. So like very small, but got stuck back there for like 45 minutes. It was like really uncomfortable. And looking back, like I learned a lot from that, where I could have easily avoided getting back roomed. But it really left a bad taste in my mouth.
From what I've seen in the movies, it looks like a very uncomfortable place to be. Like, was it like an interrogation?
It was kind of like they kept calling me Corey, and my name's not Corey. And this like tribal police officer. Yeah, I was like, I don't understand where they got this from. And there was this tribal police officer who was like, they're telling me that you're Corey, and I'm like, I'm not. How about this? Because the other thing too is with card counting or anything, you don't want to flash your ID, or you don't want to give away your ID because it gives up your identity, and they can add you to these databases, like Biometrica, OSN. But basically, I said, if I flash my ID and I show you that my name is not Corey, which it's not, are we good? And he was like, sure. So I, sure enough, flashed my ID. He's like, you're not Corey. I was like, awesome. And he walked away. And what I know now is at that point, you've definitely got heat, right? There's suspicion from the casino. It's good just to pick up your chips and leave. For some reason, being green or naive, I thought that hey, he knows I'm not Corey. I'm good to go. But the next time I turned around, there was like between 7 and 9 suits behind me. And then it just kind of went from there. But it really left a bad taste in my mouth. I did not like it. And interestingly enough, when I was in Vegas getting tested out, there was a couple other guys who were attending. So we're all newbies to the space. And one
this
of the guys,
is when you were sort of trying to find out if you were a good card counter.
Yeah, but so we were in Las Vegas and we went to a casino and he showed me, he's like, there's something about like slots where if you look, there are like progressives built in. And I'm like, yeah, of course. There's like, I know there's mini jackpots and minor jackpots and majors and so on. He's like, no, they're smaller and the frequency is much more often. And I was like, this sounds like horseshit. like there was just no, I didn't believe it. So we went in and then he showed me. It was a game that a lot of people that are like in the space know. It's called Golden Egypt. And if you flip between the bet levels, you'll see that one like game. So basically, if there's a panel of, let's call it 5 bets, like there's one bet where is different, is a completely different game from the next bet. So on one machine, if you have 5 bets, you have 5 different games built in where you have these opportunities for it to be, positive expected value to finish playing until the progressive hits. And at the time, I didn't understand it like that, but it just was like just a holy shit, because this takes me back to that first time when I was at Potawatomi. I was playing like a Buffalo slot, which was, again, not in any way an advantage. And then bringing that forward to that point where it's like understanding expected value and how to beat the casino. It's like, okay, this might have legs. And that was really, really eye-opening.
Huh. Okay. So you got to explain this to somebody who doesn't play slots at all. You're talking about 5 games built into one machine. So what, every time you pull the lever, like you're playing 5 games at once? Like, I don't get it.
No. That's a good question. So, it's so funny because in talking with people who understand this stuff, it almost sounds like we could be speaking a different language to one another. But so it's not 5 at once. What it means is like, let's just say it was a 1 cent machine and the bets increment by 50 cents. So it's like 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x. So you'd have 50 cents, $1, $1.50, $2, $2.50. Each bet has independent progressives from the rest.
Okay.
And so what you do, they call it like playing the piano, is like you touch the different bet levels and you'll see that there are different values on each bet level, which makes it's the same game, but 5 different instances. If that still doesn't make sense, I'm sure I can come up with a quick analogy.
So in one spin, like one pull or push of the button, you'll bet all 5 of these at once, or will you bet them each separately?
It would be separately, and then a lot of times when you press the button, it doesn't count as a wager until you press spin. And so what you do is you're just looking at each individual bet level in order to to see like what is the progressive at on this bet level, as long as you know what you're looking for. Right. Some of this I'm being intentionally vague, but it's like each one. So like, for example, on Golden Egypt, there are gold coins that are above the reels. And if you get 2 gold coins, the reel turns into a wild. And so at a certain point, if you've got enough of these gold coins that are, say, 1 away, it becomes a positive expectation to play until it resets without gold coins on these reels, if that makes sense.
Okay. Right. I'll have to take your word for it here because I have like no experience playing slots, so it's hard.
What I tell everyone is that's a good thing. Well, but that's a good thing. I would say if you like the level of like minutia that you have to like look for to understand like what has value, because there's 2 different types of slots, which is like there are persistent state slot machines, which means that the stuff you see on the screen matters. And then there's like, non-persistent state, but then there's fake persistent state that the slot manufacturers put out there where it looks like something is going to happen, but mathematically doesn't impact the game at all.
Huh.
Yeah, it's really
Inter-
weird. And
Well, I get it though, because that would be all sort of part of the game of sort of the hook and the catch there, right? Like, they want to make you think you're going to win, and you're probably not. And you mentioned, you got to look for all these different things. Meanwhile, you got all these lights going off, sounds going off. It's I can imagine that there would be a lot of sort of fake outs. So you've identified something. You've identified an edge, an advantage here on this one particular slot game. All right,
one.
Right. What do you do next?
Well, then I started, okay, because the thing is too, is a lot of people don't want to just explicitly like talk about it, right? Like I mean, look, we're hiding your face, we're hiding your name right now. You even mentioned that you look like a card counter. I imagine that's maybe because you're a young guy, you've got a clean cut look to you. There's a lot of sort of mystery that you want to have here. That's true. And so the next steps for me was I was trying to have conversations with people about it, but a lot of people were not interested, right? And so I went to Twitter. I just, back then, there were people that were just posting a ridiculous amount of pictures of what they were winning. I think there's kind of this human element of like, I don't call it ego, right? Because I think in a perfect world, nobody would have been posting pictures. And honestly, I don't know if I would have ever been where I am right now without it. Because what I did is I would find people that I had heard of before, or just basically I created a catalog of all these photos and would try to figure out what games they were playing. And then what I would do is go to the casino, try to match up the pictures I'm seeing online with the specific games. And then I would go through and go hit the game info button, take pictures of all the rules, and then go home and say, okay, what is it that they're playing for? Like, what is the progressive that is specific to this machine? After doing that, there's a certain point where you do need to start playing. And I think that's always scary because it's like, well, if you know the game's beatable, but you don't know what is the return to player? That's kind of like the key thing you're looking for with slots. So it's like, you walk into an average casino, worst case, you're getting like 85% in the US. So every like $100 that you gamble, you're expecting to lose 15.
Right.
But then it's like, okay, what is this feature worth? How often does it hit? What does the base game pay? It's like you have to break all this out. And the only way I could do that was, again, starting to play and collect data. And so I was going in and playing these different games and keeping track of how much money I was up or down, what was happening on the screen, what was collected, what wasn't. And then I went and there's a prominent slot guy. There's a handful of them in the community back then that everybody just kind of knew were sharp. And I reached out and he was helpful, but wasn't willing to so I had this data, but I didn't exactly know what to do with it is like the simplest way of saying it. And so he was helpful and kind of helped me take the next step forward. But I think with everything in this community, people don't want to just hand you the keys to the kingdom. And it's mainly because then you don't respect it. It's kind of, the same thing, right? Like if he were to just tell me, I'm probably much more inclined to go tell someone else because I don't understand the time and effort and energy that went into this, figuring this out. And so, I was able to get a hold of him. And then I finally, I started looking at all these forums, and someone had actually posted the math of a calculator online. And it was like the first time I'd ever seen a slot calculator. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so I have this data. I know how to make these variables. And I think I know how to put it all together. And as time went on, I was hanging out in Discords because a lot of these guys, they hang out on Twitter and Discords, or, we had met at Bet Bash. It's like going to these different type of conferences, you're going to find people who think just like you do, for better or worse. I would like to say better, but, so I got to this last piece where I had a calculator, I had the data, I had the variables, but it was not making sense in how it was calculating to me. So there was one last guy who I brought all this information to, was well known, and he helped me. He was like, this is the piece that you're missing. And then it all just clicked. And at that point, it was game on, right? Going in, playing these games, collecting data, and then building, my own calculators. And I want to be clear, I don't do this alone. I don't think, I don't care if you're in sports, if you're in, table games in casinos or slots or whatever it is that you may be doing, everything is, they say like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that has a lot of truth here. And so I ended up just by chance getting introduced to these guys who they had a group who were all doing what I was doing. And now if we've got a group of guys working together, collecting this data and building these calculators, it's a force multiplier, right? Like you're going to find the pivots on games faster. If there's a problem in your math, instead of going and playing for a while and figuring out that you're losing money and figuring out what's wrong, someone else is going to like correct you. And that's where things just went on this, like, it wasn't a linear growth. It was very much exponential.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about the power of a team here on the show quite a bit, and how important that can be to long-term success in the betting space, whether it's sports or in your case, casino. So you got with this group. How long ago was that?
That's a really good question. I think it's tough. I think it's been about 2 to 2.5 years.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
You've been working with them now for we'll call it the last 2 years. What does that sort of operation look like? Is it you just going to your home casino?
So for a long time, when I was still working full time, I would go to places that were close to me, and for the most part, that's what a lot of the guys do. Because it almost like this part of like slot advantage play reminds me a lot of what I read about blackjack back in the early, before it became well known, was they almost thought it didn't work, like it didn't exist. And so you could get away with just playing these in your local casino for a long time. But then what's kind of happened is similar to we talk about information going out of like numbers and people not respecting it. That's kind of proliferated, because what's tough is like there's a barrier of entry for skill in blackjack, right? Where you need to learn basic strategy, you need to learn deck estimation, you need to learn how to, like, what the index plays are. You need to know what you should be betting in accordance with your bankroll so you don't go bust. With slots, it's like if somebody tells you a number and it's as simple as just saying that number to someone else, there are some additional variables where you can kind of get a little bit more precise, but it's tough. And what that's done is it's killed off a lot of things that were good for a while, maybe faster than it should be. And now that's causing just like people will be waiting right behind a patron who is like a profitable player for the casino. And these people, they call it like camping, will make them uncomfortable. And it's like, you don't want to do that. I've always gone out of my way I'd prefer to just not have people even notice me at all. But, by sitting very close to people or getting aggressive over, hey, I was waiting on this game. Oh, no, you weren't. Like these weird interactions that happen. Has started to put it on casinos' radars where they want to kick out slot players. And so, yeah.
Okay, so slot players are being targeted, getting limited by the casino, if you will.
Yeah, slowly but surely, right? And, for a long time, it was just if you were showing a win on your account, but they're getting more sophisticated. And so, like anything,
right, especially if you show up and you're like, I'm here to play that slot, none of the other ones. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Or a specific type, right? Because right. So they're starting to put software to track our players only playing progressive slot machines, but then they have to classify what a progressive slot is. And just like a sports book, you don't have to be really smart to make money running a casino, like being an operator. You really don't,
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
the edge is built into everything.
Yeah, for them, right? So that's why they don't care. And but also, what you're saying is, so guys have had to start traveling more just due to showing too big of a win-loss on their accounts. Or, the other thing that's happened within the group is like too much competition, like starting to show up. And it's people who are maybe, we call them advantage degens, where it's like they don't necessarily know when to play it, but they know that the game is beatable. Which is like the same.
I love that.
Which
the
is like
advantage
the same
degen, right?
Yeah, and it's
they
like
know
so.
that, the edge exists, but they don't necessarily know why or how to always exploit it.
Agreed. But so here's something that I struggle with though. With that is like, so when people found out that blackjack was beatable, right? What did they want to go play? They wanted to go play blackjack, but they didn't put in the time to learn how to count cards. So the same thing with these advantage degens. They know that this game can be beat, and they just want to go play it. I think the thing that's tough, and the part that I was starting to say that I struggle with, is like I feel that we are part of that like engine of the casino, because frequently, especially as your bankroll grows, you can take on more risk and bigger bets. So you're going to be getting these large payouts where people walk by and they're like, "Oh, I can win like that too," right? And it's on the specific machine or the specific machine type, and you'll see those same people playing that same game or a game like it. Where in turn it helps us because now they're playing progressive slots where, the whole way that we make money on these, by the way, is people sit down to play. We call them ploppies. So they just plop down, start playing. And they play the game long enough to build up the progressive to where it is, positive expected value without hitting it. And so we need people to play, but so does the casino. And so, if you walk by and see like a $20,000 plus hand pay, like that's going to catch your eye as a patron or a ploppy. And so I feel like I've described it as like we're part of the engine. Like, so people like build it up, we take down the progressive, and then it just fires off again. Because, and those people who are playing, where the progressive gets reset, are getting a much worse return in the casino than they should be, because it's all calculated as like the average progressive amount. So like, to say it in a different way, let's say that like a jackpot resets at $50, right?
Okay.
But the machine is set to 85% RTP. The average payout might be $75, but if you're playing that means that if you sat down and it was $75 when you started spinning, you would be right at that average return to player, 85. But if you're below it, you're actually contributing to that meter before it gets to that average return, where you're getting worse than 85% return game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
And so some of these games are just atrocious if you're a ploppy, and you'll see a game come in that's really good for us, but the other people have such a terrible experience with the game or just get crushed on it that it gets taken out in pretty short order. So it's weird about that dynamic. So people do move, but sometimes you'll know a game better than like other people in the country, and you just go on like a countrywide tour targeting the specific game before other people can catch up and figure out when you can
a countrywide tour. So you've done a fair amount of like traveling to go target a specific slot game in various casinos.
But me compared to other people that I know I've traveled a good bit, I would like to say, but there are people who have even, tripled or quadrupled as much as I have in traveling for something like that. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's worth it though.
Absolutely. I mean, especially, again, imagine that'd be like being told that you can only bet this one specific market, over the counter, but at every casino you go to, you're going to be able to get down, I don't know, generate, let's just say it was $750 or $1,000 of EV, or, depending on how much you can actually wager with your bankroll. It's like, that everywhere you go, you're going to be able to bet this thing, but it's limited. Like, I think that's the part that's weird. It's because in sports betting, if a market is broken, right, you can just keep betting into it, but you need to know what your overall take is. Like we call it like a percentage of the pie. Like, we never want to, on something where it's open-ended. Like the way I classify it is kind environments and unkind environments. I would put sports betting and like stock trading and even poker as an unkind environment, because the rules are variable and can change. Whereas like slots and blackjack are kind environments because the rules are set. And it's like the same with the slot. Like, the number of spins it takes to hit a progressive doesn't change. So, but what's weird is I can only play it after someone else has lost. Whereas in sports betting, if they're offering a specific market, you can bet it for whatever the max is, and then theoretically you could send in someone else to bet it and someone else. You could keep getting down on this edge, whereas with slots you cannot.
Well, they might move the line in sports betting, right? They could easily move the line depending on the book and what it is. They could change the odds, move the line, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I kind of get the point that you're making.
Yeah. Whereas again, and I think that's the thing that's always been interesting to me, is like there's a prominent advantage player where what he talks about is like the number one goal is to remove your constraints. And I think the one thing that's been interesting about slots is my constraint is other people sitting down and playing it up high enough to where we can like then play it profitably. Because if it's not there, I could walk into a casino and have nothing to play.
Right.
If
You
I
just got to sit there and you're waiting for somebody to go and play that one machine.
Yeah, and I refuse to do that. That's just a waste of time. And so that's kind of where, slots was kind of what got me. I would say, blackjack was built the foundation, like foundational skills. Slots has kind of been the like intermediary. I've talked with, a number of really successful advantage players. There are things because I was so focused on slots that I missed that were pretty easy money. And so that's the thing is like now it's just not being too tunnel visioned on just one thing, but incorporating that with other things and really juicing edges has been what the focus has been lately. And so that's been really good.
Is that why you went to BetBash? Like, are you looking to expand now into sports? Is that kind of part of it or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I went to BetBash just because what I find more interesting than like anything else is people. And so the people in the advantage play space, I don't care if it's sports, I don't care if it's, casino, even, stock trading, whatever. There are different ways of thinking. And I think that unique perspectives on problems that people are all aware of is kind of how you can come up with pretty unique edges. Like that's where some really cool stuff can start to happen, where it's like, what if we incorporate this slot thing with, will give us bigger limits on this, sports betting market. And then what if we tie in, this other piece where we make a request to the host, and it's like, well, you just took like a 2% edge and now it's, 15, 20%. And then it's like, okay, is that a repeatable process? And if so, how do we do it? And it's like, now those are the fun conversations. And the best solutions that I've had is talking to sports bettors and talking to, table games players or people in the financial space. So I went to actually the first Bet Bash out in New Jersey a long time ago.
You're one of the OG attendees.
Well, but I haven't made it to every one, right? So I went to that one, and then I went to the last two. So I did miss, I believe, one. But what's funny is, more and more I've seen other guys who are kind of ubiquitous in this space or just, like really known to be sharp guys, and it's like they're casino players, but they're at the sports betting, at Bet Bash too. And then I'll see them, as we were talking about before this, like at the blackjack ball as well, right? And it's like, I think there's a level where there's networking opportunities, which I think is one of the most important things. It's also just kind of boots on the ground, and you can meet newer guys who are eager or have the right mindset that you could like potentially even like work with and in a way mentor. But then also there's plenty of learning as well of like, things I didn't even know existed. And then I think what's tough is I do the best when I'm really interested in something. And so I just need something to really grip me, to really dive down, focus in and crush. And so that's kind of where I go looking out almost like for inspiration, maybe is the simplest way of saying it.
I would imagine too, and like I know for, sports bettors, the variance will hit everybody, and you kind of mentioned, people feeling like, oh, well, I'm here because I'm great, and ego just is so big in this space. And, especially on Twitter and other social media. But, as an advantage casino player, do you go through significant losing runs and how do you deal with those?
Oh yeah. I wish that there was no variance, but at the same time, variance can actually help you with things too, right? Where it can help keep things on longer, or maybe if people don't have the same like bankroll or even like ability to deal with I say you have like your bankroll, which is obviously your cash, but you also have your emotional bankroll. And so some people can't handle those swings emotionally. There is a good bit of variance. I think that, what's interesting is we're going up against a team of people who hire PhD psychologists that want you to be emotional and not logical, right? And that emotional can be like the highs of winning, right? Like you've heard of like a winner's tilt, but then also the lows of losing. But both, if you're feeling emotional, you're not going to be betting logically. And so the swings here, I mean, I don't think they're as bad. Like So I've heard of people having just really, really long, like 200-300 hour, even longer losing streaks playing blackjack. Thankfully, I haven't experienced that with slots. But the downswings, I would like to say they don't impact me, but in talking with my wife, there's a difference when I'm winning and when I'm losing. And I think that part kind of stinks. And actually, like while we're talking right now, I'm on like my biggest downswing that I've ever had, and it sucks. But I think there's a certain part, like we're not robots either. Like we feel it, right? But
Right.
I think as long as you know what's going on and the exact math of what you're doing, and you know that you're generating positive EV, there's some level of comfort there, and it's just not deviating. Or furthermore, the big thing that I see with people in slots is they end up taking on a lot more risk than maybe they think they're taking on in relation to their bankroll size. So like, instead of betting like quarter or half Kelly, like they're going full Kelly or past that. And it's just, sometimes that works out for people. Like, right, if we had just a distribution of a bunch of people making these bets, because it is, plus EV, some of them would fare really well, but there's also others on the very bottom of that. So I just always try to make sure to resize, not overbet the bankroll. And, I think the other thing that keeps me sane is having that community of like-minded individuals who have gone through this, right? Helps keep me from going insane. And so there's definitely a handful of people that without them, I think it'd be a lot tougher.
I love how you mentioned your wife though, and how she can point out when you're winning and when you're losing. It's funny because we often, and I'm the same way, and my wife knows as well. And it's like, you think after a certain amount of time that you've gotten control of the emotions, and you know what? No, I handle the ups and I handle the downs, and I can have it all level out and be here. But even though that you might think it and think you're feeling it, other people can still see it.
See it. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And, somebody explained it to me like this too. It's like, you'll unlock thresholds where it's like, maybe now, losing 5 or 10 or even like $20,000 in a day doesn't hurt. But it's like, well, if you keep playing bigger, right, your bankroll grows. Eventually, maybe it's 40K, maybe it's 50K, where then it's like, well, ow, this is a new pain threshold, right? And that, again, as we talked about, it can go the other way too, as far as like, winner's tilt and everything. So it's weird, it's very abnormal to like think, oh, I've just lost. Like I'm on a down streak that is over half of the salary that I was making when I started at my first job, like that's like post college. And that's a weird thing,
It is a weird thing, and it really kind of changes your relationship with money and how you look at it in a major way that I don't think that a lot of people out there can really understand.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I think my wife is kind of like, because it's capital, right? Well, in the sense of it's the machine doesn't keep going. Like I'm not able to generate money without money. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, the name of the game is just to not go broke. But I think at times if like friends or family heard how much, again, winning or losing was going on, it would be eye-opening. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Again, it's good to have those people that you can have open and honest conversations with that understand it. And that, again, they keep you from going insane. I've started, it's weird, but for like dealing with the swings, with this year, we started doing yoga and it's great. Like, going and just taking time away from my phone. That's the other thing. And someone told me this. So like when you become a full-time Advantage player, they're like, you almost feel like you're missing out if you're not close to your phone, because somebody could reach out with an edge or, hey, do you want a piece, do you want some equity in this play or whatever?
Right.
And it happens. Right. But with yoga, it's like they teach you like breathing through, like your breath is the most important thing as you go through and like stretch. Also, I don't know about you, but I do a lot of sitting. So it's like I'm able to stretch and my back doesn't hurt, but then also it's like it helps deal with like stress in the moment. Even like when I, if I'm like in the middle of a downswing or something really bad is going on, it's just like focusing on your breath. And I think it sounds crazy, but it's done good things for my mental health, I think.
I believe it 100%. And we had some mindset people on the show a few weeks back, quite a few weeks back, and we talked about breath and breathing and meditation and all that sort of stuff. But I know myself too that the breathing is can just, even that alone, right in the middle of a session or a moment where things aren't going right, you could just take that moment, take the step back, have those few breaths, and just try to reset.
100%. Yeah. And again, I think the other thing that I found about myself, where like staying centered and especially with handling variance, it's obviously most of the time it's handling negative variance, right? Positive variance, it's like, crushing. But the negative variance, I found it's so much easier if I'm like sleeping well, drinking water, eating, which sounds crazy, but it's like, you can get onto these plays or these opportunities where it's like you can just keep generating that EV. And I think that's the other thing that I've seen just with across the board is, there's not a lot of things where you can just go and just keep making money. But this advantage play space is one of those things where, you've got people where I got buddies where they used to, play video games, but like, it doesn't matter. I could be taking that time. I'm, playing Call of Duty or, watching TV with my wife, and I could just be making money. And it's like, I think that's another kind of like, I don't know. I don't like to call anything right or wrong, but I know what works for me and what works for, my wife. And I try to keep that at top of mind to avoid, going down something that wouldn't work for us. But I think sometimes it's easier said than done, especially when the opportunity is big enough, right? If somebody's telling you, I can't say much, but I could tell you about a time here recently that I had to not participate in something, and it was very difficult.
Yeah.
So basically, there was this play, and it was worth $4,000 in EV an hour, and I didn't need to. I really wanted to go do this.
Right.
It was some guys that I was working with, and it was before the wedding. And
right, because you just recently got married. Congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like a little over 2 weeks ago. And it was like there was no time to travel and get this done. And the thing is like this particular thing had been something that I was looking for years, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever find an opportunity to do it. And this thing popped up, and I was stoked. And I went and had the conversation with my wife of like, hey, basically with just hours of work, like, in a day of working, I can make back in EV what our wedding's going to cost, was literally what the conversation was. And I was like, I really want to go do it. And it was like, okay, but there's, X, Y, and Z needs to get done before the wedding. And we have these people waiting, and there's this other thing we committed to, and I wasn't able to do it. And then the plan was after we got married, I would go and take advantage of this opportunity. And in 6 days, it got fixed. And so I didn't get to do it. And it sucked. But looking back, even knowing what I know now, it's like, I don't know. It's those kind of decisions, I think, that are most important, at least for me, where it's like, again, in a day's work would have made back the wedding money in EV, but I don't know. It's like, if that becomes your guiding light, if that became my guiding light, I don't think that I would enjoy life as much, basically, right? Because there's a certain point where I think if that's what you chase, then that's all you think about, and that's what you value, and it's tough, So looking back, would have been fun to have been a part of this play and print, basically. Yeah, it would have been great, but this is actually something that Colin says is like the tables will always be there, right? Same thing. Mm-hmm. Slots are always going to be there. Sports betting is always going to be there. There's always going to be other opportunities. It doesn't have to be right now, but I think it's tough, especially when, years in the making of this thing, and I couldn't do it. So it comes, I just try to think about what is it, the life that we want to live, and then make AP fit into that, as opposed to, I guess the other way around. It's like, this is what we're doing, and let's figure out how to get our time in, in between the cracks. And so, it's tough.
It's tough. It's tough, and it's a balancing act, absolutely. And FOMO is so real, especially like on our side, the sports betting side. Any FOMO can just be real outside of betting and gambling in general. You know what I mean? And it's hard to deal with. But if you can get a handle on it, it can really kind of change things for you.
Right. True. But again, easier said than done. I think it's like a muscle that has to be exercised. And I think, again, just talking about like going on, just making sure you're getting enough rest and drinking water and eating and stuff like that. Maybe something catches you at the wrong time where you're not prepared too. And it's like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. So interesting stuff, but go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask, do you see yourself getting into sports in any way, or is it strictly casino advantage playing for you for the near future?
Not to sound like, if I find it interesting and there's an edge, I'll do it. Is like the simplest way of saying it. And I think the biggest kind of qualifier for me these days is how much time and effort does it take on my end to make X amount of money, right? And then kind of like ranking them.
Sure, ROI on time. That's a big one.
Yeah, it's really what I'm trying. That's, if I were to say, that's my metric I'm trying to maximize. So would I? Of course. In fact, like there's a group that I work with where there's a sports betting angle that we're looking into. Actually, there's a handful, but again, just making sure that it's worth our time. And then if it's not, there's other ways. Like if you can find the edge and you have this community, then that you can pull people in, right? You can say, what kind of resources do you have? How much time do you have? And figure out if we can strike a deal. But then the toughest thing is always trust. So it's better if we know you already, or if you come recommended to us by someone that we already know. But that's kind of another angle we're looking into is like, my buddy and I were talking about it. We're like, dude, we feel like a reverse incubator. So, like an incubator works with startups.
Oh, yeah. You're a reverse.
Where it's like we're coming up with the ideas, and what we're looking for are motivated people who are trustworthy and hungry to come in and say, hey, we've got 5 or 6 ideas. We'll pitch them to you. Whatever you find interesting, go ahead and run. But then, of course, like we would either help fund it or run it, and or take some percentage of equity. I'd like to say we're fair in that, but then the guys running it, they get a big chunk. And so that's been something that we've been trying, and it's going well, because you know what the limiting factor is here on everything?
What?
Time.
Ah, right.
Right. Like there's more edges than I'm aware of, enough edges than there is more time in the day is the problem. And so it just becomes, again, that balancing act. And then also, right, making sure there's enough time to be or feel human in between is kind of that's the balancing act.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
This conversation was great, Daffy. We went much, much longer than I had planned or intended, but really
Apologies.
No, don't apologize. It was a great conversation, and really just want to thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Shane. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And people can find you on Twitter if they want to connect with you, maybe possibly work with you, talk to you about an edge they found, and maybe explore it further. Can people reach out to you? You're at Daffy the AP.
Yeah, Daffy the AP. That's a good place to reach out. In all honesty, I don't check Twitter as much as I should. So, but if you want to connect, that works. The other thing I would say is, my email address is, and it's specifically for AP, is daffy93@gmail.com. So just shoot me an email. Those 2 ways are the best.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks again. All right.
All right, time to hit the grind with Gosu. He's joining us now. John, how are you, man?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
Hey, great to have you, as always, doing this segment. And just a reminder for everybody out there, remember that all of these bets John's going to call, you will be able to find them at SX. Check it out. go on, look for the lines. You'll probably get the best juice there. And if you feel like parlaying some of them, they got a big tournament going on. I'm on the leaderboard for this parlay tournament. I'm sitting at 38th, and I'm in the money. I think I've got about $200 coming my way if this tournament ended today. But I know that I will need to keep grinding and putting my parlays on there as well, because things move quickly there, and I want to be in the money this time. I missed out last time around. This time around, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get in there. So looking forward to that. And shout out to a guy in Play Live, Kev Jackal, out there sitting in third place right now as we record this on Monday. So Kev, if you're listening out there, keep it up, buddy. Keep up the good work. You're looking great out there.
That's what happens when you can't play basketball anymore. You end up just making a bunch of parlays.
Blow your knee out and then go become a degenerate.
He must be winning some of these parlays too, because his point total is enormous. So it looks like he's a sharpshooter on the court and with the parlays. He's doing well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, John. Let's get to it. We got some college football to start things off as always. What do you got for us?
Yeah, let's do it. We got had a couple tough ones last week. I don't know what the hell was going on with Tennessee, but we'll fade them here shortly. But just a weird week this week, right before the big rivalry week at the end of college football. There's some teams playing FCS teams this week and stuff like that. So just kind of a weird, slowish day, which typically in college football means that wild things will happen. Honorable mention to a couple games that I won't actually have any action in, but USC at Oregon, a really big game. Oregon needs to win out probably, and USC can still maybe have a chance if they win that game and some weird stuff happens. So that one's a big one. And then our guys BYU at Cincinnati on Saturday night. I think BYU is still they've definitely got a shot to get in. So I think they probably need to win that game to stay in contention. But some interesting games to say the least. For the first bet that I'm going to make this week, though, I'm going to go to the noon slate. I'm laying 7.5 at home with Oklahoma against Missouri.
Okay.
So potential letdown spot here a little bit for Oklahoma, though, after that big win against Alabama, though they don't really have a week 14 rivalry game anymore. So they're playing LSU, who's I think just as much of a corpse as Missouri is in this game. So they're not really looking ahead to anything. And Missouri really, really needs to rely on the run. So with Ahmad Hardy, their running back, became, I think, the 6th player ever to get 300 yards rushing in a single game in the SEC last week. We really benefited from that game. That was probably the best game we had all day on Saturday. Shout out to Mississippi State kicking onside and then kicking a field goal down 20-something at the end of the game. That was incredible.
That was great.
Great game for us. But I'll give you Oklahoma's rushing defensive stats in the last 3 games. So when they played Ole Miss, 41 rushes, 116 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. Tennessee, 35 rushes, 63 yards, 1.8 yards per carry. And Alabama, 33 rushes, 80 yards, 2.4 yards per carry. So Missouri is going to be trying to run the ball. I don't think they'll be able to do it. And then they have a freshman quarterback on the road. I think Oklahoma just rolls here. They're on the inside track to the playoff. They should be playing pretty free. So I like Oklahoma. Anything on 9.5 or less, I like in that game, but I'm taking minus 7.5.
Okay.
There. The next one is if you've seen the 3rd Indiana Jones movie, The Last Crusade, when he's at the temple at the end.
My favorite.
Yeah. So the leap of faith. This is a leap of faith. So I am taking Charlotte plus 45.5 at Georgia. So Georgia is playing Georgia Tech next week. Obviously that's a big rivalry game. Georgia Tech actually really good this year. They have been the last couple of years, been pretty good. So that's an important game. Georgia's probably still locked to make the playoff no matter what. But Kirby Smart does not cover these games. So Kirby Smart at Georgia, 7-22 against the spread as a favorite of 26.5 or more, 0-11 as a 38.5 point favorite or more. So we're getting 6.5 touchdowns here against Kirby Smart in a game where, and typically in these spots, he doesn't even score that many points. He'll use this game as like a glorified practice to try to work out some kinks and some fundamental stuff that the team's struggling with, he thinks. So I'm taking Charlotte plus 45.5. I don't think Charlotte will score, but I don't think they'll have to cover this number. So that's what I'm doing.
You're suggesting that maybe this game could be like a 41-0 kind of game?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably what it'll be, like 38-0, 42-0. And if Charlotte scores, all the better. Like if they get some garbage at some point, or maybe the Georgia fumbles on their own side and they kick a field goal, like it's just very difficult to cover these numbers because the clock ticks the whole time.
Don, it sounds like we could take a middle in this game. Charlotte 0 points, Georgia plus.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Take the if you same game parlay Charlotte's team total under and then to cover the spread, I guarantee you it pays a lot.
Wow.
So stuff like that is there are some good negatively correlated strategies there for stuff like that for sure.
Huh. Might have to take a look at that. All right.
Yep. In the next game, I like Pace is going to love this one. Arkansas plus 10.5 at Texas. So Arkansas hasn't won a game since the second week of September, I believe, or maybe the first week of September. But they continue to cover as an underdog in the SEC. They're always in the game. They just find a way to lose it. And Texas, their season's pretty much done with the expectations that they had. I don't see how they can really make the playoff from here. They have 3 losses. And they play Texas A&M next week. So that's kind of their Super Bowl, would be to beat undefeated Texas A&M at home, cause some trouble there. So I don't know how much they're really practicing for this game, care that much about this game. Arkansas cares a lot about this rivalry. If you ask Arkansas fans who they hate the most, they'll always say Texas. And Texas, I think, has kind of grown past caring about this rivalry. This is an old rivalry from the Southwest Conference that doesn't exist anymore. And so this is very much like a one-sided thing where I think Arkansas gets up for this game and Texas doesn't. There's also tons of rumors about Sarkisian leaving Texas, going somewhere, maybe to the NFL and whatnot. So I think there's just a lot here to make me like this. Plus, I make it under 10. I think it should be like 8.5, 9. So I just like the number that I'm getting here. So there's this is a play for me, and maybe ironically Arkansas gets it done and wins a game after a really long drought here. So we'll see.
A little sprinkle on the money line. All right.
Always. Next, Florida hosting Tennessee. I am taking Florida plus 3.5 at home against Tennessee. Tennessee hasn't won in Gainesville since 2003. I believe they also won in 2001. And before that, you have to go back to 1971 to find a time when Tennessee beat Florida in Gainesville. This is a really heated rivalry between these two. Very difficult to win on the road in this rivalry. Florida.
That's a crazy amount of time.
Yeah, it is a long time. They didn't play every year between 71 and 2000 or so, but they played a lot. Like it wasn't an every year thing, but they played a lot.
Wow. For a good team like Tennessee, like that sounds insane.
Yeah. So it's just tough to win there. It's a night game. I make this close to a pick. I still have Florida rated fairly highly. I know I faded them last week. That's because I thought the Kiffin factor of allegedly him going to Florida and all that team, Florida or Ole Miss, just showed up slow. And we've actually seen this as kind of a theme that I'm watching now with an expanded playoff of teams who already know they're in the playoff pretty much, who also cannot get to their championship game, most likely. Like, what are they really playing for in some of these games? It's kind of like just get the win and get out of there. And we're just not seeing these teams win by margin that much. So just something I'm watching, but I do like Florida this week. Again, like I said, should be closer to a pick. Joey Aguilar for Tennessee, he's just regressed every week. He peaked in that Georgia game when they should have won that game. And then I think ever since that pick 6 to end the half at Alabama, when they ended up losing that game despite outplaying Alabama on the road, he's just gotten worse and worse every week. It seems like he hasn't recovered mentally from that. So I really like Florida plus 3.5 here.
All right. Moving over to the NFL.
No, one more in college.
We got one more college. Okay.
Yeah, one more college. Taking UCLA plus 10.5 at home against Washington. I think this is just a sleepy spot for Washington. I make this around a touchdown. If I had to put this line, I would put it at like 7.5. So getting double digits here, I really like. Washington hosting Oregon next week, and obviously a rivalry game with potentially a chance to knock them out of the playoff. I also have a suspicion that Jed Fish's representatives has been contacted by Florida about their head coaching job. So I don't know how much time he has to split between preparing for this game, preparing for Oregon, and then hopefully going back to his alma mater to coach that with a huge bag in tow. So I like UCLA plus 10.5 at home here.
At home. Okay. All right. Now over to the NFL.
Yeah, over to the NFL. Really good week. This past week, well, as we're recording this, we haven't seen the Monday Night Football result. We have Raiders plus 3.5. 4-0 this past week in the NFL of what we had. 4-1 the week before, and then 3-2. So we're 11-3 over our last 3 weeks in the NFL, which is pretty solid. I think we're 31-22, 58.5% on the year in the NFL. 4-6 money line dogs winning outright. So pretty good. This week, I am taking the Lions minus 10 at home against the Giants. Jared Goff getting back indoors where it's nice and warm and cozy. Dan likes to get his guys going after a bad loss like they had on Sunday night against Philadelphia. And Giants, I know they just fired their coach or whatever. They got a little bump there against the Packers. Probably should have won that game, but I think they probably just end up rolling over here on the road against the Lions and get blown out pretty easily. So I like Lions minus 10 there.
Okay. Lions minus 10 at home against the Giants. All right. Next up.
Yep. Next up, bottom of the dumpster here, we're going to take the Bengals plus 7.5 at home against the Patriots. I don't think the market on the Patriots could possibly get any higher than it is right now. I'll take the Bengals at home. I think there might be a little bit of wind, some weather in this game. The Bengals defense is obviously bad. I think we're due for a Drake May stinker. He's always got like one or two plays every game where you're like, whoa, like what are you doing there? And he hasn't really been punished in a while. I think we maybe see something here this week on the road. So I think the Patriots will still win, but I do like the Bengals plus 7.5.
Okay.
John, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Mm-hmm.
Bengals D is not the time to test your Drake May theory.
It's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah,
it's a fair point.
That team just involved in a lot of high scoring games, or at least they've been giving up a lot of points.
Yes. Though I think their total went under this past week. Though it almost didn't because of multiple pick sixes. I believe
the two pick sixes. Yeah. It did go under. It did go under.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Next up, a big divisional game here.
Yeah, your guys. The Vikings at the Packers. I am taking double dipping in this game, taking both the Vikings plus 6.5 and the under 41.5.
Let's go, John. I want to blow the horn.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah. So a couple things working in the Vikings' favor here. I don't know that JJ McCarthy could be any worse than he was this past week. He was absolutely terrible on Sunday, and they still were in that game.
They were in it. They were in it
the
right
entire time. Granted, some bad competition, but the Packers, if there's anyone knows how to play to their competition, it's the Packers. They find themselves every week, no matter who they're playing, in some sort of weird grinded out game where they should be winning by a lot and they're just not. So get 6.5 in a rivalry game. I like a lot. And then the total, the under 41.5. I think the Packers defense is really good. At least it has flashes of being really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's going to be a lot of punts in this game outdoors. The weather looks okay. I think it's nothing like the weather we saw in the past week of just some really bad wind across the country. But I think anything over 40, I have to take under in this matchup with how the Packers play down. And I think probably a very muted game plan from the Vikings, I would think, with the lack of confidence it seems like they have in McCarthy, and I would probably have after last week. So I like both of these.
Yeah. I like it, John.
And then finally, the Cardinals plus 2.5 at home against the Jaguars. I think we're getting a bump on this number. I think it should be closer to a pick because of how the Chargers or how bad the Chargers looked against the Jags last week. So they made the Jags look really good. To me, the Chargers, I just any team that plays them, I've kind of been betting. I think you just have to bet against them or bet the Chargers like team total under. So if their offensive line is just absolutely in shambles, they can't do anything. Herbert's under pressure constantly. I think it was something of like not this week, but when they played the Steelers 2 weeks ago, there was a stat of like he held the ball. It was the quickest time to release of any quarterback this season, and he had 60% pressure rate. So he was throwing the ball faster than anybody had thrown it the entire season and was pressured on over half of his dropbacks. Wow. So this Jags defense, I don't believe in at all. And I think the Cardinals it's just like this is a sell high, buy low, nice matchup here where if you look back a week ago, this line was a pick. It should just still be a pick. I don't think there was anything that surprising, at least to me, in the results of the games this past week. That they were involved in. So I think we're just getting a bump here. I actually think this might get to 3. So I would probably just wait, and maybe it is 3 by the time listeners hear this, but I'm looking for the 3, but I would still take 2.5. You can get 2.5 plus money right now.
Okay. What happened to the Chargers? Because they started the season out looking really strong.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're missing 4 starters on the offensive line from before the season, and I think it's been tough to fill that gap. So, when I think it's also, it's like the story of the 49ers. I think somebody said the 49ers are missing 16 out of 22 preseason starters, like going into camp. Like sometimes this just happens, that football's a lot of luck. And part of it is what happens in the game, the way the fumbles bounce, tipped balls, missed kicks, all that kind of stuff. And some of it is outside of the game. It's season long stuff like this with injuries. So you got to get lucky to win it all. And we're looking at some teams right now that haven't been very lucky.
Yeah. Pacer, you got a teaser for us?
Yeah, I'll throw some darts at the wall here. The one thing, John, that you didn't mention is we're seeing some of these like really bad teams now we're starting to see some massive spreads.
Yeah.
Right. We got the 14, 13, 11. Like there's some big spreads coming up for this Sunday. And honestly, I think some of them might be a little too low, which you kind of made reference to with the Lions there. But I think Seattle should absolutely drum Tennessee, like absolutely drum them. They're kind of bombs away, run it up offense that they have. They're exciting as well. And I thought that if had it not have been for those 4 interceptions from Starnold, they would have taken care of business with the Rams, and even with it, they had a kick to win the game. 60-yard miss there from Myers, but they turned it on late. And yeah, I think Seattle's just an insane team. I might actually slap them on my teaser, even though it doesn't make sense to do. But I am definitely taking Drake May on my teaser. So Patriots, I'm going to slap Seattle on there, run it up here to get into profit for the season. The Rams and the Niners. So Niners, Rams, Seahawks, and Patriots. It's just a fun one. Let's go.
All right. Yep. All right. Patriots plus 3 AFC West teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right, cool stuff. Before we go, I got a quick story that I want to share with you guys because we haven't talked about it too much this season, but you guys know that I play OLG pools.
Finally!
Finally. So hold on.
Shane,
hold
so
on.
I haven't brought this up because I've been waiting for a moment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so
okay. Here we go.
This isn't about me. I'm just going to start that off. I have 2 wrong picks on here. I'm cooked. This isn't about me. I got 2 wrong picks on here. And honestly, every week I have 2 wrong. Every week. 2 wrong. I'm like, you see the thing like 2 years away from being, 2 years away. I'm 2 picks away from being 2 picks away every week.
Right.
But here's the rub in all of this. So long, I've told you guys how I've won it. I've won it quite a few times over the course of the last I've been playing it now. We're in 2025, heading to 2026, about 13 years now that I've been playing this, and I've won it quite a few times. But the very first time I won it was one of my biggest wins ever, 26 grand. I've told that story here before. That inspired a lot of people in my circle of influence to play it. My dad won it 2 weeks after I did. A lot of other family members. So one of those family members, this is on my wife's side, her sister and her husband, and they've got 3 boys. Now, one of those boys is 10 years old, loves football. And they've been making these pools tickets. And this 10-year-old boy has got a perfect ticket going into tonight's Monday night's game. He's got the Raiders tonight.
Oh God.
Let's go.
God. Yeah, he's got the Raiders tonight. So if the Raiders win,
it'll be a good payout for sure then.
That ticket could be a pretty sizable win.
Yeah.
It could be a pretty big win that he's going to pull in for his family. So 10-year-old boy on my wife's side, my nephew on my wife's side, potentially, if the Raiders can come through, is going to pull down, hopefully, fingers crossed, a massive win for his family. It'd be so cool. But here's the extra little cherry on top. Guess what this kid's name is? Locke.
Oh man.
Yeah, his name's Lachlan, and we all call him Locke or Lockie.
That's awesome.
Go. All right, so Locke, if you're listening, good luck, buddy. This will be Wednesday, so either I'm sorry you didn't win or congratulations. Yeah. Hopefully you got that W. Pretty cool.
I'm gonna like low key be cheering for the Raiders tonight now.
Yeah, there you go. You go. Right? How could you not? Yeah, and we already have them plus 3.5, right, John?
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Isn't it funny the way human psychology works? Like if it was John's buddy that we call Lock of the Century, we'd just automatically cheer against him. Yeah. But it's some kid, and we cheer for him.
Yeah.
Of course, right?
But Lock of the Century would never have the Raiders. He would have the Cowboys for sure.
He would have the Cowboys, of course. Yeah. So pretty cool stuff there. All right, let me recap before we say goodbye. In college football, we've got Oklahoma minus 7.5 at home against Missouri. We've got Charlotte plus 45.5 at Georgia. Arkansas plus 10.5 at Texas. Florida plus 3.5 at home against Tennessee. UCLA plus 10.5 at home against Washington. Over in the NFL, it is the Lions minus 10 at home against the New York Giants. The Bengals plus 7.5 against the Patriots. Packers, Vikings under 41.5, and Vikings plus 6.5 against the Packers.
I love that under.
And Cardinals plus 2.5 at home against the Jaguars. Pace's teaser: Patriots, Seattle, Rams, 49ers, all 6 points, right, Pace? 6-point teaser? There we go.
Yep, which makes no sense in the Seattle game, but we're throwing some shit at the wall again.
But we're doing it anyway. All right, there we go. All right, guys, love it. All right, until next week, Pace, John, sports bettors around the world, keep beating those books. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.